Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of the trailer for Marvel's Moon Knight, coming to Disney Plus March 30th, with Oscar Isaac playing Stephen Grant, aka Marc Spector, aka Jake Lockley, aka vigilante empowered with the magic of an Egyptian moon deity, aka Egyptian mutant Insabanur. Oh wait, no, Oscar Isaac was Apocalypse in another Marvel universe, and the X-Men won't get sucked into the MCU until Multiverse of Madness, when Oscar Isaac being Moon Knight in this reality will be like the 12th most confusing thing about that. But this trailer was filled with mystery and tricky visual glitches in this character's broken perception, so I am gonna go through this frame by frame to break down all the really cool stuff that you might have missed. And thanks to Boxu for sponsoring this video, more on them later. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to Staying Awake.
I have a sleeping disorder. I can't tell the difference between my waking life and dreams.
So the trailer opens with Oscar Isaac as one of his identities lying in bed using an app that helps one stay awake because he doesn't want one of his other identities to take over. He twists a Rubik's Cube at first with just one hand, as if this is a kind of coordination one identity might have that another might lack. Later we see the side that he is closest to completing is the white side, white being the color of Moon Knight's wardrobe, which in the 2006 Moon Knight comics from Charlie Huston explained, "I don't wear white to hide myself, I wear it so they see me coming. So they'll know who it is, because when they see the white, it doesn't matter how good of a target I am. Their hands shake so bad they couldn't hit the moon." I just love that quote so much. It's part of the reason the character is so great. I had to share it with you. Also, the toggling colors of a Rubik's Cube, of course, reflect the toggling of this man's identities. He suffers from a form of dissociative identity disorder. The voice we hear right now is that of his Stephen Grant identity, with Oscar Isaac speaking in a British accent. But on the word dreams, the accent seems to switch to a different consonant pronunciation?
Between my waking life and dreams.
As if another identity is taking over mid-sentence. In the comics, Moon Knight's primary identity is Marc Spector, the son of a rabbi turned mercenary who ends up possessed by the Egyptian moon deity of Khonshu, becoming the vigilante known as Moon Knight, with powers linked with the lunar cycle. And he takes on other alter egos like wealthy one-percenter Stephen Grant and taxi driver Jake Lockley. But obviously they're switching some things around here, because here he bolts several locks on his door, he puts tape on the cracks so that he'll know if the seal is broken, chaining his ankle to a lock that only one of his identities would know the combination to. The fact that he expects this other identity to not know how to just peel tape off of a door and put it back on tells us that the form he is worried about turning into is a more monstrous one. So we're looking at a real werewolf Jekyll and Hyde scenario here. Stephen turns in his bed, reflected in mirror glass that refracts him into 3 forms in total, perhaps a way of showing his 2 other identities, and yet he still twists around in fear as if he's looking at a 4th identity, maybe that of Moon Knight, as it creeps in on him. Let's move on.
Hello, and welcome to Staying Awake.
Okay, here that app service voice echoes over itself as if this is something he has used for countless nights, and then he bolts awake like from a nightmare. But notice how he is now wearing different clothes than before. So who knows if this is a different Knight, or if another identity took over overnight and just changed his clothes and calmly locked himself back up. And as he stumbles out of bed, he steps in a ring of sand, which he likely spread out to track any entity going out or going in. Kind of like when that couple in Paranormal Activity used flour to track that demon. You'll notice among his stack of books is Adventures of the Soul, Journeys Through the Physical and Spiritual Dimensions. This is a real-life 2014 book by medium James Van Praagh about the human soul, how it fits into this life, how it travels into the spirit realm. So clearly Stephen is doing some research on metaphysics to try to understand his condition and how his soul has becoming detached from his physical body. Now the music throughout this trailer is Kid Cudi's Day and Night, a song that Kid Cudi said that he wrote to deal with his sleeplessness after his uncle passed away, an uncle that he ended things on bad terms with. And the song Day and Night, Nightmare, is his version of the Ghetto Boys' Mind Playing Tricks on Me. The music video shows him slipping in and out of reality the way Stephen/Mark/Jake never fully know what's real in their world. On to the next clip.
In my mind, I think I'm losing it.
Real catch you on. You're bloody useless, Stevie.
Stephen.
Okay, so Steven runs to catch this London bus. I'm assuming this connects to the shot we saw in the November teaser where his hands hit that bus, except now his hands are covered in these fancy white gloves. He could be finding himself in a new identity as he briefly passed out for a second. Could be the dressier version of that white suit that we've seen in the comics. He works at this museum. Up top it reads National Art Gallery, an art gallery with a historical exhibit for ancient Egypt, it looks like. Now, I thought this was a real museum in London, but the National Gallery of London has a different architecture. I actually thought this was the British Museum, but if you look at the architecture of the British Museum, that is a completely different building than this. I did some digging. This is actually Budapest's Museum of Fine Arts. They use CGI to swap out that Hungarian for English. We should also be clear, this is not the same museum as the Museum of Natural History where Cersei and Dane Whitman work in Eternals, but both of these museums are in the city of London in the MCU. And I think that Eternals post-credit scene of Dane finding the ebony blade of his family, taking one step closer to becoming the Black Knight, and meeting Blade Mahershala Ali could set up those two to join Moon Knight in the future as part of an MCU Midnight Suns lineup. Now, whereas comics Stephen Grant is a millionaire, this Stephen works at the museum gift shop under this flirty boss Donna. I like how he corrects her calling him Stevie by putting on his name tag, just another example of him having to constantly reassure himself of his identity. And in this gift shop, of course, are surrounded by Egyptian iconography, a figurine of a scarab, a Bast statue, and these puzzles. One for the Cornet Marai, that's a necropolis in Luxor, and then another for the Book of the Dead. Oh, yes. The Egyptian Book of the Dead was a funeral text written by priests over 1,000 years. It contained magic spells in order to assist a dead person's journey through the underworld. Now, that's real world history, but elsewhere in the MCU, we got another Book of the Dead called The Darkhold, which is becoming hugely important. Seen with Agatha Harkness and WandaVision taken by Wanda to seek the multiverse for her children, and now showing up in the trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, used by Doctor Strange, probably against the Scarlet Witch's wishes. Now, in the comics, the Darkhold was drafted by a demon named Chthon, who in comics canon initially gave Wanda Maximoff her sorcery, but in the MCU, these two Books of the Dead could come from the same textual history. We'll see. Moving on.
I can't tell the difference between life and dreams.
Thank you.
Lost the contact lens.
Hope you find it.
Thanks.
So here in his flat, Steven hears voices and then looks over in his bathroom mirror, and his reflection flashes very briefly into his fully suited up Moon Knight form, complete with glowing eyes, and behind him you'll notice the pale glow of the moon through that fog. I just like how when this spectral form appears, the moon shows up with him. This awesome flickering light horror imagery also shows up in the far end of this hallway leading to the elevator, where we see our first clear shot of Khonshu, and he looks terrifying. Huge bird skull floating off the shoulders with cobwebs dangling down, a ratty cape, mummified arms, and he holds a staff with a crescent moon on the top. We actually caught what I think was our first glimpse of Khonshu back in the first teaser, that monstrous shadow lurking behind Steven on the museum floor as he stifled his screams. But here, Khonshu limps down the corridor toward him, his linen wraps dragging behind him, and he grabs that elevator door with that mummified hand before turning into a sweet old woman. Don't trust her, Steven. Steven! Yes, in this clue hunting in theory bitchin', I am cooking on gas, and that's because I have upgraded my snack game. If you're tired of the same old snacks, Boxu is a monthly subscription service that delivers premium Japanese snacks and tea pairings straight from Japan to your door. Each themed monthly Boxu takes you on a gourmet journey through Japan. Boxu partners with 100-year-old snack makers to make their original treats and support family businesses. Now, the first Boxu you get is called Seasons of Japan, and it lets you taste the seasonal flavors popular in Japan. Every month after that, you'll receive a different themed box like this one. This month's Boxu is Pink Valentine. See, each Boxu comes with a booklet that tells you about the cultural theme and shares where all the snacks come from. So you got this good stuff comes from Hokkaido, etc., etc. I'm gonna try this one. Oh, it's a yummy looking little chocolate. Oh, this is so good. It's nice and wavery, got some layers of cream in there. It's like 3 of my favorite different snacks that are all in one. Oh, I feel like the world's Valentine. I mean, I gotta be honest with you guys. This whole box design is really, really cute. It would make a really nice Valentine's Day gift. So if you wanna get some awesome Japanese snacks for yourself, or maybe that special someone in your life, click the link in the description and use our code ROCKSTARS to get 10% off your subscription. Next clip.
Now hold the phone. Yeah.
Oh my god, you're alive. What's wrong with you, Mark?
Why did you call me Mark?
Okay, once again, we see that great shot from the teaser showing Steven reacting to his reflections in the display case glass and stepping forward, but his reflections do not follow. Even those two reflections between the two of them seem to have slightly different reaction speeds from each other. I think all three of these embody Steven's split identities. Now, the statue in that display case depicts the sun god of Ra on the far left, he has a falcon head, and then on the far right, Anubis, who has a jackal head, both of them appearing to mummify Osiris, the deity most associated with the process of mummification. Really, the weirdest things though about the shot are in the foreground. First, that crocodile, perhaps a Nile crocodile that you often see in these exhibits, could also connect to that crocodile on the unknown collar screen on the flip phone. Both could be nods to Amut, the crocodile-headed goddess of the underworld. But also, beneath that croc, there appears to be mummified human remains on the freaking floor. And notice how Steven holds his arm as if he has been wounded or bitten. Maybe this guy was doing a bit of grave robbering, tampering with these remains, taking something off of them, and Khonshu's spirit jumped out and bit him. But notice as he steps forward, the shadow that stood behind him before he steps out of frame, after he passes that shadow, it is no longer there. Creepy. Now, Kid Cudi's lyrics of "hold the phone" repeat, as if the record is skipping, until Steven finally uncovers this crawl space containing this key and this flip phone, probably a phone that he heard ringing in the walls and thought he was paranoid, but it actually is a real phone and a key belonging to his other identity, Marc Spector. So the character we've been staying with this whole trailer is not really the main character of the story. We haven't really met Mark yet, which is why I love this trailer so much. I actually hope the next trailer spends most of the time with Mark, who is a badass mercenary who somehow ended up as this pencil-pushing loser in London. How long has he really been this way? Was there some previous backstory that has been erased from his memory where he initially made first contact with Khonshu back in Egypt? And the reason he is working at this museum is to try to reconnect with that spirit. Now, the caller on this phone is the voice of actress Meg Halamawi, whom you may know as Rami's sister Dina on Rami on Hulu, and the closed caption identify her character name as Layla. Now, the most famous Layla from Marvel Comics is Layla Miller, aka the mutant butterfly, who has the power of resurrecting the dead at the cost of their soul. She actually makes her debut in the House of M event that we speculate Multiverse of Madness to be partly adapting, and Layla Miller is actually crucial to bringing down the House of M because she uses her power to restore the memories of superheroes, and she helps restore the reality. Doctor Strange even suggests that Wanda Maximoff might have created Layla as a failsafe to help the heroes in case something went wrong. Sure, this could just be like any Layla, but Meg Halamawi is such a great actress, it'd just be really cool to see her play a similar role in an MCU House of M event. So let's move on.
That must be very difficult. Voice in your head. Shut up! There's chaos in you.
Okay, here we meet Ethan Hawke's character, a cult leader that Hawke said he based on David Koresh, leader of the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas. But the closed captioning identifies him as Arthur Harrow, who's a pretty deep cut from the Moon Knight comics, who only shows up in one issue, a storyline in 1985, where Dr. Arthur Harrow was a mad scientist with a facial disfigurement who works on a way to numb the pain centers of the human body, conducting some human experiments, basing his work on Nazi experiments. Now, Ethan Hawke's version of the character seems quite different, but maybe his motive is the same. He could be a spiritual leader promising people who suffer pain to numb their pain centers. And I'm guessing all these people kneeling to him in Germany, Loki style, that this guy's got the goods. He has some kind of power. Now, this town square does have German signs and a cupcake delivery truck that a major sequence later takes place upon. Those colorful buildings could actually be seen in the background of the November teaser shot where Mark comes to after beating up a bunch of guards. And now surrounding Harrow are some armed guards that might be part of his cult, that suggests his cult is a militarized one. These guys wear matching jean vests and layers underneath those vests that match the color that Harrow wears. Now, in the Moon Knight comics, many of Moon Knight's foes had Nazi links since the character's Jewish upbringing was a big part of his conflicts. Maybe Harrow in this show is also rooted in those Nazi experiments, and this cult could be on some old Nazi compound in Bavaria. Harrow tells Steven, "There's chaos in you," suggesting he does have some perceptive abilities and can see the demonic possession inside of Steven. And yeah, this is happening in that museum. Could it be by happenstance that they met? Or was Harrow seeking the same thing that Marc Spector, kissed by this demon, is also unconsciously seeking. Then another shot of Steven flipping out while someone talks to him in the foreground, could be talking to himself. Like this could be taking place inside of Steven / Mark / Jake's mind palace, where the other two identities have to hang out when they're not in the driver's seat. Then this great shot on the cupcake delivery truck as it speeds down that mountain road, and Steven Mark Jake comes to, shocked at the gun in his hand in his current situation. The truck's windshield has been blown out. His face and knuckles are covered in blood, just like they were in that teaser shot. Now that box behind him reads Von D. The rest of the name cut off, and yes, I did lose my mind too for a second, thinking this could be Victor Von Doom, but I am sorry to disappoint you. It is just the name of the cupcake distributor, which you can see on other boxes in the back. It looks like Von Derelman, but also in the back, that dude's face looks gnarly. Either a cupcake might have smeared on his face, or he's bleeding heavily from the head, or maybe both. It's just super violent to see this guy who might have been shot in the head about to roll out the back of the car under these two pursuing cars. You'll notice they're driven by guys wearing the same kind of outfit he is. So I guess Steven beat them all up trying to get to Harrow, and now they're chasing him down. And I guess this will lead to Steven completely falling off a cliff, though presumably he's gonna transform into Moon Knight mid-fall and manage to stick a superhero landing. On to the next clip.
Embrace the chaos.
Okay, we see the Great Pyramids of Egypt, and then I'm guessing this is Marc Spector inside of a temple or a tomb. I think this could be part of a buried and semi-forgotten backstory when Marc Spector was still in that identity that Stephen Grant does not remember as his Stephen Grant identity working as a loser in this museum gift shop. It's gonna be in this museum where he reconnects with Khonshu that awakens Stephen Grant to remember that he had this whole past as a mercenary and an Indiana Jones type badass. So he thought his whole life he's been a loser, but through his dissociative identity disorder, he's gonna remember how much of a killer he actually is. I love how as we see him fleeing down this hallway, Khonshu's form trails at his feet in the form of that crescent-shaped shadow. Then we hear Harrow's voice advising, embrace the chaos. And then another mirror shot as Steven throws his head back to allow Moon Knight to take over. I love this. You can see the linen wraps assemble over his shoulders, each tiny fiber piecing together. This looks like the bathroom that later appears busted as he beats up that creature. But we actually see a similar moment where this happens outside. It's just so cool to see how this works. Like the Moon Knight identity is mummifying his body to transport him into the land of the dead, but just for the night. And in this exterior shot, some shadowy figure is watching this happen from the lower right corner of the frame. But we end on this awesome shot. Now we did see Moon Knight pummeling something in the November teaser, but that shot was not finished. And now we see what they added in. He's beating up some supernatural creature with freakishly long legs, huge canine feet, and pointy ears. Now, my first instinct goes to werewolf because the MCU is soon going to introduce us to Werewolf by Night, Jack Russell, Gael Garcia Bernal, in an upcoming Halloween special, it sounds like. But I think a likelier option is this could be a jackal form as seen in The God of the Dead, Anubis. And as Moon Knight turns to camera, a few of those linen wraps stretch across his chest to hold the crescent moon sigil in place. I love how practical that all is. Actually, this shape looks like the crescent dart weapon that he uses, as we saw in that series poster that I love so much. Now, we are going to be covering Moon Knight weekly when it drops on March 30th, but until then, support New Rockstars by checking out our merch options at newrockstarsmerch.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EA Voss, follow New Rockstars, and subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and wow, yeah, I somehow made it through this whole video without mentioning Mephisto. That was not easy.